I'm so pleased to welcome back to the program a guest that people have been asking for a long, long time. And of course, I'm talking about Larry Nichols. Larry, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you. And it's an honor to be here, buddy. It truly is.
So pleased to have you back on, Larry. I've gotten so many messages since our first call. Everyone knows, nobody knows the Clintons' crooked ways better than you, Larry. But before we get into all that, give us an update on your health. People have been concerned about you.
Well, I'm doing much better, as I hope you can hear.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's just keep our fingers crossed, and we'll proceed forward. But I'm doing tons better.
That's good to hear.
Done some work and fixed some of the stuff that was wrong, so we've got our fingers crossed, and everybody's prayers have been helpful, truly helpful, and I appreciate it very much so.
I think I'm speaking for the entire Crowdsource the Truth community when I say I know you are in everyone's prayers. People can follow Larry on YouTube. He's got his own YouTube channel, and it is, for some reason it's not, let me just re-add the screen there. I've got it up right here. It's Larry Nichols' official channel, and I'm not sure why this isn't cooperating, but we can see it right here on the main screen. So you can go on YouTube and search for Larry Nichols' official channel. And what type of stuff are you getting into on there, Larry?
You know, Jason, I am trying hard to get people to follow your lead and others to realize just how close we are to losing our country. I know, everybody's got all the conspiratorial stories, et cetera, et cetera. This is real. If you can't see by now how close we are to losing our country, you're not looking. Jason, I have been saying for a long, long time, there is an honest to goodness, real, soft coup going on within our government right now. Right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've heard that from Steve Pieczenik as well, so I think there's little doubt. All this stuff going on with the FBI, the DOJ, trying to bring down Donald Trump.
That's right. Well, let me explain, if I may, as quick as I can, the problem Donald Trump poses. You see, most people think we have three branches of government, the executive, legislative, and judicial. And because of that, we have been brought up to believe and to trust in a checks and balances system. One checks over the other, so no one center of government can take control. Then you're supposed to have the fourth estate, which is the media,
right,
which is supposed to hold all of it in check. Well, guys, now you know what on earth could happen if, over time, you take the judicial branch and the legislative branch and you put your people in those to where you get control of that, and then you manipulate and you get in control of the executive branch. And folks, you've got our country. You've got us right there. And of course, you have to have a complicit media that's willing to lie, propagandize, and keep the people from knowing. There's one thing that caused a cog in their wheel. Hillary was supposed to be president. And if Hillary had been president, if she had been elected, I have no doubt, Jason, that they would have started by now. Now remember, Jason, I've known the Clintons for a long, long time. I was there when we were planning a lot of this.
Wow. Yeah,
planning a lot of it. 1986, folks, we wrote the plan then for what's happening today. As crazy as that sounds. I mean, it was a joke, but it's come to pass. Hillary was going to take over. Now, for anybody that doubts me, I'm going to give you one little thing so you don't have to believe me. In the primary election of 2016, more people voted in the Democratic primary for either an announced socialist in Bernie Sanders and a socialist communist in Hillary than voted for all the Republicans together. Y'all realize what that means? That means 50% of our nation right now is willing, maybe even wants us to turn in to a version of socialism. Jason, there it is for you. There it is. Yeah. Now, let me tell you what's coming in this election. Sometime around August or September, the Democrats, to secure a victory so that they can take over the House, so that they can, and they've announced it, I don't think anybody's hiding it, if they get control of the House, they're immediately going forward to impeach President Trump.
Right.
They're going to introduce two legislations designed to specifically trick voters into putting them in control. One of them is reparation. They are going to introduce legislation that they will use as a part of all of their campaigns that they're supporting reparation.
Reparations
to
for
all
what,
the
Larry?
blacks, to the blacks, for all of the sins of America having to do with slavery.
Got it.
Even though you and I, Jason, we weren't there, we had no part of it, would have no part of it then or today.
Right.
They're introducing legislation to create reparation for the blacks for slavery. The next thing they're doing is they're introducing legislation to trap the millennials. And
What do you
it's
mean?
nasty.
Trap
Well,
them how?
what they're going to announce legislation that they plan, if they are allowed to get control of the House and the Senate, they intend to pass legislation that does two things. First off, free education, free college. But the kicker is they intend to wipe out all outstanding college debt.
Wow.
Now, folks, that sounds crazy, but you better think about the reality of it. There are a lot of people that will go for those things. A lot of people.
Sounds too good to be true, Larry, but obviously if you had huge student loans, it's something that you'd vote for, right?
Right. That's the way the system works. First off, let me tell you, they do not intend to deliver it. There's no intention to deliver either one of them. But that's the old trick that we used with the Clintons. Promise whatever you got to promise to get elected.
Right.
Once you get elected, you don't have to do it. And blame the Republicans or blame, the other side for stopping you.
Right.
But they intend to trick the black community into voting because they're concerned Donald Trump has made giant inroads into the black vote.
Yeah.
And they're concerned about it.
Rightfully
and it's a
so.
midterm election. Yes, and it's a midterm election. And as you know, Jason, midterm elections are low voter turnout. So how do you get people to come out and vote in this midterm election enough to secure the House for the Democrats, possibly even the Senate? They don't worry about the Senate because the Republicans on the Senate aren't really Republicans anyway.
Right. I mean, look at what Paul Ryan just said yesterday.
Exactly. So they'll come out with these issues and try to stimulate the black vote to where they will turn out. They will vote out for reparation. They will turn out for reparation. And then think of all the people that are out there, bless their hearts, that are sitting there with 100 and 200,000 college debt that they can't pay. And here they are saying they're going to wipe it out. Now the millennials, they intend to activate them and get them to come out. And it's a pretty serious plan, if you think about it.
It is.
You understand the technical aspects of a campaign. If you understand the technical aspects of a midterm campaign, it's all about turnout.
Absolutely.
And those two things can trigger it.
Larry, I don't know if you heard this ridiculous statement from the gubernatorial candidate here in New York, Cynthia Nixon, the actress, said that marijuana licenses could be offered as reparations for black people. That's pretty offensive. Seems like someone who is pretty out of touch with the black community. I don't believe that all black Americans smoke marijuana or would be interested in a marijuana license. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is. But remember, what they're playing on, Jason, is just to excite enough of the black population to get them to come out and vote.
Well, it's just like they did when Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act. It's sort of largely understood that Johnson did that specifically to capture the attention of the black community for Democrats, and he predicted they'd be voting Democrat for the next 200 years. He was a little bit less delicate in how he phrased it, but this seems like a new version of that.
It is. Well, remember, Jason, in a midterm election, a relatively small boost in either the black turnout or the millennial is 3 times as significant as it would be in a general.
Because it's such a low turnout overall, huh?
That's right, exactly. And I have long since given up on the fact that the American people are smart enough to see through a lot of things. We seem to be awfully gullible, even more so today.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people are very...
This is the kind of trick that...
Yeah, they're prone to believe what they hear on the news and all that sort of stuff. Larry, let me take you back a little bit. I think everybody knows Larry Nichols, but for people who have been living under a rock, give us some background of how you first came to know the Clintons, how you started working for them and with them, and what types of things you were doing when you were sort of in your prime working for the Clintons there in Arkansas.
You bet. In that day, which was the mid to late 70s, the kingmakers in Arkansas were the Stevens brothers, Jack and Whit Stevens. They owned Arkla Gas. They owned just about everything in Arkansas, most all the banks, etc. And in that day, if you wanted to run for dog catcher to governor, you had to have the approval of the Stevens group. Any race you wanted to run, if you were not in with the Stevens group, you didn't make it. They controlled the media, much like today. Remember, Arkansas was a third-rate state. I remember the national meeting when they came in covering Bill Clinton. They couldn't believe it. They said Arkansas was like a third-rate country. It was just so controlled. It was just such a kind of like a gangster-run state.
Right.
Well, that system they had taken to Washington. But I was in with Mr. Whit Stevens. I was his fair-haired boy. So one day, making the story as short as I can, he came to me and said, we have a man you're going to meet, young man, and you're going to make him governor, and he'll be the youngest governor in the history of the country. That man was Bill Clinton. They had set up for me to have a meeting with him. I met him at a restaurant. And during that meeting, just so y'all will know, I was trying to talk to Bill Clinton, who was Attorney General at the time. I was trying to talk to him about matters pertaining to running for governor. And he was chasing the waitresses, pinching them on the butt.
He's consistent, Larry.
Yes, he is. So here we were. The next day, I had to meet Mr. Jack and Mr. Witt in the Twin City Bank building. And we had the big meeting. They said, well, what did you think? I said, well, I can tell you this about in the time I was with him. He's a womanizer. He's a sexual deviant. He's a pathological liar. But I think we can make him win. And Mr. Jack Stevens said, well, that sounds really good. How in the world can you make somebody like that win, you think? And I said, well, we can't make people possibly love Bill Clinton. But what we can do is make them hate him. Mr. Witt took his cigar and stuffed it in his glass of tea and said, now you've gone over the deep end, or some comment like that. And I said, look, for everybody that we can make hate Bill Clinton, there's somebody that hates them. And the fact that they hate Bill Clinton means that they will vote for him.
Right.
And that was the way we did it. That was the way we got him elected. Crazy as that sounds, but it worked.
Now, Larry, I'm glad we're talking about this, because you're bringing up aspects even of your story that I was unfamiliar with, having followed you for many years on your channel on YouTube and on InfoWars and the various interviews that you've done. Stevens has come up recently in conversations with Charles Ortel. They were somehow involved in Hillary Clinton's early success in commodities trading. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What can you say about
yes,
that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, well, there was a broker that worked for their agency in Fayetteville. And what he did is they took $1,000 from Hillary.
Right.
Remember, the governor in Arkansas in that day made $26,000, $28,000, I'm sorry.
Wow.
That was a salary. That's it. So they took Hillary's $1,000 and put it into cattle futures.
Right.
But the trick was, what he did is he took people that invested in cattle future deals that profited. He took those out of their name and put Hillary in it. And the deals that they had for Hillary, if they lost, they put those in the names of the people that had won. And so over a course of about 3 months, Hillary took that $1,000 and made $250,000.
Wow. Does it shock you, Larry, that people to this day really don't know the details of this, and so many people think Hillary Clinton is this great champion of women and such a wonderful person?
You know, Jason, that is that's my nemesis right there. How can the people in America, out of the 38 major scandals about Bill Clinton, starting with Jennifer Flowers, Paula Jones, Whitewater, etc., all the way to Monica Lewinsky, as you know, Jason, 37 of them came from me.
Wow.
The only one of the 38 that didn't come from me was when he got his hair cut at the airport in Atlanta and tied up the whole airport over him getting a haircut. After all of that, after him being impeached, after Hillary doing what she did for Monica Lewinsky to cover her up, for Hillary to have covered up all of the women that Bill Clinton accosted, for these women groups to still support her is just beyond the pale to me.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized it's Arkansas all over again.
Right.
They don't care. They don't care. It's about gain. It's about personal gain.
Something that I noticed, Larry, something that I've noticed that seems to be kind of a Clinton MO is this guy Malik, I think was his last name, was the coroner in Arkansas when Bill was the governor.
Fahmy Malik.
Yeah.
Yes, Fahmy Malik.
Controlling that coroner's office is critical to getting away with murder, and they seem to have a tight grip on it. What can you tell us about that?
Fahmy Malik, when Bill Clinton's mother was in Hot Springs, she was working as a nurse, anesthetist, or whatever you call it. And she actually overdosed the guy and he died. Fahmy Malik covered that up for Bill Clinton. And because of that, he gained a permanent seat as the medical examiner in Arkansas. And whenever a suicide, which came to be known as an Arkancide, now let me make something very clear. I want to say it out front in front of everybody. I'm credited with saying the Clintons killed people. I have never said that. I have never said Bill Clinton or Hillary killed anybody or even had anybody killed. What I have said is that there have been numerous people, more than any other administration as president, even during war, that people died mysterious deaths, and they all seem to have one thing in common. They seem to have information that could be detrimental to the Clintons.
Right.
One guy, for example, I'll never forget, I had him fixing to testify in the Whitewater. He had a bunch of documents. He was a key witness. They found him. He had cut his head off down to the brainstem, cut his hands and feet off, set himself on fire, and threw himself in a dump. And Fannie Malik ruled it a suicide.
What's that guy doing now? Fannie Malik.
Well, I guess he's retired. He stayed medical examiner until he retired. He retired out of there just happy as a lark. Now, let me tell you, when Bill Clinton was preparing to run for president, he went to the Arkansas legislature and they passed a law that if the medical examiner ruled any death a suicide, the case was sealed and could not be opened by anyone, federal government, anybody. So when people started coming in to investigate the death of, say, Kathy Ferguson, others that were mysterious, when it was ruled a suicide, they couldn't access any of the files, any of the information. It was sealed. And the list goes on and on and on.
So few people know about this, but it seems like something that's, they always sort of set the prototype and then that becomes the template through which massive crimes can be done.
That's right. Well, today, what do you think's happening today with Robert Mueller, Rosenstein, Comey, the guy that's the IG, I can't remember his name.
Horowitz.
I just went blank. Horowitz.
Michael
all
Horowitz.
those guys. Michael Horowitz, they're all part of the group. They were all buddies. Do you really think they're going to investigate each other with any earnest?
Well,
Hey,
people
James Comey investigated. I found this out. Shocking bit of news. I should have known it, but I didn't. I found out yesterday that James Comey, when he was investigating Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, right? Did anybody know he was on the board of directors for the Clinton Foundation?
I did not know that.
I didn't either.
I do want to ask you something about Mr. Comey, Larry. I went to see him with Laura Loomer. I don't know if you're familiar with Laura, but we went to see James Comey's book tour here in New York City, and Laura stood up and informed him that he's going to be locked up, which I think she's on the money with that. They threw her out for that little tidbit. But the thing that I found interesting in Mr. Comey's book is that he talks about how he's never met Hillary Clinton, and he found that strange. He opines that it was probably due to his involvement in the Whitewater investigation. He says that he was working for a law firm that was hired by the Senate at the time, and he was specifically investigating what he calls the suicide of Vince Foster. And he goes on to say that he had to leave the investigation because his infant son died in the hospital right after birth from a preventable infection. Now, it ends there, but I found it oddly conspicuous that he went to so much detail about why he thought he didn't meet Hillary Clinton. And this is pure speculation on my part, Larry, but do you think it's possible, given that James Comey has 3 other children who remain alive, that he could have been driven away from the Vince Foster investigation and intimidated to the extent that he has 3 remaining living children, or am I crazy?
Well, I don't know about that, but I will call him a bold-faced liar because I have actually sat in meetings where he was there with Hillary.
Wow.
I was there. But these guys didn't just meet when they got to Washington. This group have been together for years. Hillary's father, Hugh Rodham, and Dan Rostenkowski, remember him? Got put in prison for 2 years for shipping furniture from supposedly his office, but it was really for his house. Well, that was me. I'm the one that put him in there.
Wow.
Hugh Rodham and Dan Rostenkowski took over the Chicago mob when Al Capone got taken out.
Wow.
They ran the Chicago mob. Now, where did I hear that? I got that from Bill Clinton. I used to ask Bill Clinton over and over and over, why on earth did you marry Hillary? And it was for the connection to the Chicago money, he would say.
Wow. Wow. Now, Dan, who you just mentioned, he was implicated on, maybe it was in Clinton Chronicles, as working with Bill Clinton and, you know, turning certain young girls into drug-addicted prostitutes. Is that the same guy that I'm thinking of?
Same guy. Look, Bill Clinton, Webb Hubbell, Dan Lassiter, Don Tyson Foods. I was with them time and time again when they would take young girls. There was one girl from Sheridan, I'll never forget, it was horrible. They took her to the Clawpaw Towers, beautiful young girl, got to be with the governor and all of these bigwigs. When they got her hooked on cocaine and got through with her, what were they going to do with her? So they sent her out to Las Vegas and made her a hooker. Her father came to me begging to know what had happened to her. And of course, I had to lie and tell him I didn't know.
Wow. That's crazy.
The kind of people they are.
Yeah.
That's the kind of people they are.
Didn't Dan
And then
Lassiter...
he talks about him being involved in the Vince Foster investigation. Hey, I'm the guy. Me. I worked with Kenneth Starr. I worked with him. He was nowhere around that investigation. Now, he may, as he said, worked at a law firm, supposedly investigating, but they weren't investigating it. They were trying to cover it up.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
But
Kenneth Starr found nothing, right?
Well, Kenneth Starr, what an interesting story there. I can prove, have proven, I think you've seen it in some of the documents I've released, Vince Foster, although I do not know if he was killed or if he committed suicide, but I can prove beyond any shadow of any doubt he did not die in Fort Marcy Park the way they said he did. He didn't. He couldn't have.
How can you prove that?
Well, let's just take one item that's in the actual Library of Congress. It's there now. It's the actual Secret Service memo. I can't remember the number on it, but you can look at it. It's there. And it's the Secret Service memo where the park police notified the Secret Service that they had found the body of Vincent Foster. Here's the kicker. That memo said they found the body of Vincent Foster in his car in the parking lot at Fort Marcy Park, and that a .38 revolver was found in the car with him. A six-pack of Arlen James was in the front seat. One had been opened.
Right.
And his briefcase was in the back seat floorboard, but it was empty. Now, that same briefcase, by the way, that 3 days later was supposedly found in his office, but it was empty. And then when I started going out all over everywhere saying it's kind of odd that he would kill himself, but there was no suicide note, 4 days after that, they come out and accidentally go in the office, find the briefcase again, turn it upside down, and there is the torn suicide note.
27 pieces of a 28, torn into 28 pieces, 27 found, no fingerprints on it.
No fingerprints. Now, Kenneth Starr, he was running this investigation. Everybody I thought it was all on up and up, because, I mean, we were getting somewhere, buddy. He opened his office in Little Rock. His branch office here. When he came to open it, he went to a fitness center on Cantrell Road, Highway 10, And there, when he was working out, two lovely little ladies picked him up. He went to the hotel. The next day, everything with Kennestar changed. Kennestar called me in and said, Nichols, you've got 24 hours to prove who killed Vince Foster. I said, I can't do that. All we got to do is investigate whoever it was moved the body. And then you can walk the case, obviously, find out who moved the body, make them talk. You'll get to it, but you got to do it. He said, there's no way I will close this case saying that they moved the body. If you don't come up in 24 hours with the answer, who did it, I'm closing the case as a suicide. And Buddy had ended.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, the pistol that he had released information on during the investigation, that it couldn't have been Vince Foster's, according to his son, and et cetera, all of a sudden, every bit of it changed.
Wow.
Every bit.
Now, Larry, there's another Arkansas businessman who oddly disappeared in 2008, and I know that was well after the time that you were working with the Clintons.
Mm-hmm.
This was John Glasgow, of course, and we just did an episode the other day, The Strange Death of John Glasgow, and there's a lot of people who have suffered rather strange deaths there. Yeah. Well, his brother Roger, you had mentioned that Bill was the Attorney General when you started working with him in the 70s. John's brother Roger is an attorney. He remains alive today. And in 1976, I believe, maybe 1972, Roger was running for Deputy Attorney General, and his hopes of achieving that office were dashed when he was arrested crossing the border back into the United States from Mexico with 24 pounds of marijuana in his car. Now, as a lawyer, he was able to successfully defend himself, and the case was knocked out because he had shown that the marijuana was planted in his car. But it just caused me to wonder, I mean, it seems like the Glasgow brothers were honest, and those honest kind of guys seem like the guys that the Clintons don't want around. Do you know anything about the Glasgow case, either the Roger or John Glasgow incidents?
Okay, number one, no, I do not. But I know the MO. The MO is one that I used when I was with the Clintons. You asked me, how did I meet him? What did I do for him? Well, I was called a handler. It was my job to handle Bill Clinton in his campaigns, and then after he got elected, to keep him in office, keep him from messing up. It was impossible. Bill Clinton would tell me he didn't care about being governor, he just liked the perks. I assure you, he didn't care about being president. He just liked the perks, being a rock star. But one of the things that we would do, and if this doesn't sound somewhat familiar today, if there was a farmer's daughter that Bill Clinton had molested, and the farmer was getting all loud and fixing to get aggressive, I would be sent in, or someone else like me would be sent in, and we would have to find stuff on the guy. And if the farmer, in this hypothetical, hadn't done anything, we just made it up. You see, in Arkansas in that day, the Stevens controlled all the media.
Right.
So we could get a story, we could have somebody arrested, John Q. Farmer got arrested for molesting babies. Well, that guy's destroyed. I mean, we just do story after story after story about the guy. And then when it was over, when he was in complete shame, crawling away, never to cause any trouble for anybody ever again, many of them did kill themselves. 6 weeks later, they'd do one inch column in the back of the one ad saying I was wrong, John Q. Farmer.
Right.
It was over.
So the MO
when Bill Clinton
matches.
became MO matches. When Bill Clinton became president, what I warned everybody, he would bring our system to Washington. And he did. Included in that system was the violation of the legal system, meaning when he got control of the FBI, when he got control of the Justice Department. Remember when Bill Clinton, Jason, you'll remember this, when he got elected, the first day he was in office, he fired 111 federal prosecutors.
All of the
Every
U.S.
federal
attorneys.
prosecutor. That's right, he got rid of everyone.
Nobody ever did that before.
Mm-mm. No. The only ones that were left standing were friends of Bill's or Hillary's. And so when he took over the Justice Department, once again, if there was anybody causing them trouble politically, socially, whatever, they would get them investigated. There'd be some investigation, and then, of course, it would leak out to the media. And then when the FBI is investigating Larry Nichols, and it hits the front page of every paper in the free world, well, guess what? Larry Nichols is guilty of whatever it was. Doesn't matter if you are or you aren't. You're done. You're done.
You know, it's funny, Larry. The other thing that Bill Clinton did that was very conspicuous in my view, and this is ironic because in a day when most people want the current president to fire a gentleman named Sessions, Bill Clinton fired William Sessions, the director of the FBI, and that had never been done before for a president to just fire an FBI director. Of course, this was done the day before Vince Foster's body was found in Fort Marcy Park, and then Louis Freeh came in. So Louis Freeh, it seems, was all right with the FBI not investigating the death of Mr. Foster. What do you think about Louis Freeh, and how did he explain not investigating that Vince Foster death?
Well, he explained it quite simply by saying that was, if this doesn't sound familiar, present day, well, we're not going to investigate it because there's a special counsel already involved. You know, just because there's a special counsel, folks, does not relieve the FBI of its sworn duty.
Right.
But under a Clinton administration or the system that they brought in, hey, all things are different now. All things are different. And you mentioned Sessions, Jeff Sessions. Folks, let me tell you, I've known that man for 25, 30 years, I guess now. He's not perfect. Anybody that's been in Washington that long is not clean. You know what I know. But he's half decent. But Sessions made a commitment when he took the office that he was going to bring that Department of Justice back under the rule of law. And by that, he was referring to the fact when they do an investigation, he was going to zip it up. And if they're investigating somebody, the point of this zipping up, or the point of investigations being sacrosanct and not being publicized with leaks, is so that, Jason, if they investigate me and they find nothing wrong, then it goes away. And Larry Nichols is not destroyed in front of the whole world. Mm-hmm. But if you leak it out that I'm being investigated, I'm guilty. 50% or better of the population is going to think I was guilty of something, whether I did or didn't. If they drop the investigation, it's over. I'm still guilty. So he swore that he would hold to his chest investigations, and he would not do them in the public. Consequently, I hear every day, as you do, the concern, and it is a concern for all of us, that he's not doing his job. You know, we hear about the tiff between he and Trump all the time. There's not much I know about Donald Trump except this, for sure. If he didn't like Jeff Sessions and what he was doing, he would have no problem firing him. None. I'm not saying he doesn't get frustrated with him. I'm not saying he doesn't get mad at him every other day, whatever. I can't help that.
Right.
But I know if there was any serious grievance between he and the job Sessions was doing, he'd can him.
And you're in personal contact with Sessions. Everything's going according to plan, according to him?
As far as I know, as far as I can tell, as far as I can say.
Let's go back to Mr. Horowitz for a second, because I think a lot of people are having confidence in him. Obviously, his IG report was just leaked yesterday, and it seems to be a damning indictment of the leadership at the FBI. What is it about Michael Horowitz that causes you to not trust him, and what do you expect to see when this IG report is officially released?
What I know about him was he was in with Hillary's group, going back to when I was with him. So, I mean, think about how long ago that was, when he was an up-and-comer. This group of suits, as we call them, this group of suits around Hillary, they were all, wannabe high society legal people. They were going to be one day in power. Well, guess what? It came to pass. It came to pass. He is no different than Comey. He's no different than Mueller. He's no different than Rosenstein. No different at all. They're all the same clique, the same group.
Yeah.
Now, what's going to come out in this IG report? I have had part of it read to me. And on its face, it's going to throw enough breadcrumbs out so that people will say, ooh, it was hard on Comey.
Right.
But it's not. It's not. I mean, it's hard talking to some degree, but it's not legal jeopardy. And I can tell you why I know the rest of it that I had no idea about is fairly worthless.
Huh.
They have timed the release of this IG report right around the great meeting with North Korea.
Right.
What do you think? What do you think is going to be the news the day of the meeting of North Korea and for a few days after?
IG report stuff.
The IG report, you won't even be able to find it. It'll all be about North Korea.
Oh, well, right. Sorry. Of course.
Sorry. It'll be buried. It'll be buried. Now, people like us, Jason, of course, people like us and people that watch 24-hour news channels, yes, we will know some of the details of the IG report. But let me tell you, guys, here's the problem in America. 99% of the people in America of voting age, y'all write this down, 99%, maybe 98, but I'm going to say 99% of the people in this country, voting age, get all that they consider news necessary for them to know about their country and to make decisions on their 6 and 10 o'clock evening news. Now, when you break down the 6 and 10 o'clock evening news, wherever you are, by the time they do local, weather, sports, special features, you end up with 4 to 7 minutes of national news. And of course, it all comes from their network feed from ABC, NBC, or CBS. And the newspapers, they all get their feeds in all of the newspapers in America from where?
Associated Press.
And Associated Press. Every newspaper, folks, in America doesn't have a reporter in Washington, D.C. They all take their feed from AP. So it doesn't take much to control what the general public gets.
Absolutely. No, it doesn't.
That's why the internet has become such a valuable tool and such a liability for the establishment.
Right.
They spent years getting control of the media. Think about it, guys. The same people own all of the media, the same group of people. You may think it's different boards, but if you look at the membership of the boards, they're the same people. The same people.
I think people are waking up to that, Larry, knowing that the media is basically controlled by a small group of corporations and individuals, and I agree with you. I think it's incredibly important that people be turning to the internet for their information and supporting some of the independent sources. Like, for instance, it would have been inconceivable during your time in Arkansas for you to have your own essentially television channel as you have right now with the Larry Nichols official channel on YouTube, which people should subscribe to. You know, this was quite surprising earlier today, Larry, when I was working with some of your assistants there to put together the details for our show today. And well, I won't share her name, but one of the people that works with you had sent me an email, I'm just looking for it right now, that you guys got a strike on your YouTube channel for simply putting out a link that shows that you're going to be doing this show today with me. Let me see if I can bring that up right here. So you've got a strike now on the official Larry Nichols channel, and I mean, apparently just telling people that you're going to be on Crowdsource the Truth violates YouTube's policy on spam, which I don't understand. I saw the video that was put out, and it was simply a mention that you were coming on the show here. Seems like something strange happened there at YouTube.
You know, I caution everybody. The internet is under attack. You, more than I, Jason, you are under attack. They didn't get you. They didn't get me because of me. They got me because of you. You know, you've got a large enough audience. You've got a significant presence, and they're going to start shutting that down.
They've been trying real hard for a year.
And they come up with some of the craziest excuses you've ever seen. But you see, they don't have to really worry about it. Who's regulating them? Who can, Jason, when they attack you and your program or your channel, who can you go to?
Really, nobody.
Who do you call?
Yeah, nobody.
Nobody.
Google's got tons of money and they control the network, and they don't even tell you what it is that you did. This is a pretty vague warning that was sent to the person that runs your YouTube channel. Just basically, you know, it doesn't say, hey, you can't use wording like this. It's just not verbose at all. And the thing is, it feels to me like YouTube does this to preserve the ability to penalize people with these very broad strokes. If they were specific in telling you what was wrong, then you could, you know, avoid doing those types of things in the future. But, you know, as you pointed out, Crowdsource the Truth has come under attack, and it's just so varied, the ways that they attack. Disinformation agents, people trying to intimidate the audience from providing financial sponsorship at patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You know, former associates, or even people approaching to try to gain my trust and then turning and trying to spread falsehoods about me. It's really astounding.
It is. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Why? Because the internet and programs like yours are so threatening.
Right.
Threatening.
Yeah, because we can get people to the real information.
We are in case y'all don't know, we are in an information blackout in America.
Yeah.
We are under the control of propaganda. Only the propaganda that complies with what the establishment wants is allowed to penetrate to the masses.
Right.
And just like you said, that, you know, they hit you with such a crazy thing that you don't know how to respond to it. But what's worse is there's no place to respond to it.
Right.
No place. My God. And I'm telling you, that little thing about the internet law that they're net neutral.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, that thing could be a killer.
Yeah.
It can be a killer. You got to watch. It
now, Larry,
can kill us.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to take you to a current story that just happened the other day that people in the comments are asking about. Kate Spade, it was reported on CBS, hung herself with a scarf attached to a doorknob. And I mean, a doorknob is only about 3 feet off the ground. Although her sister has said it wasn't unexpected, and her husband has said that she's battling with depression. Is there any link there? Do you know anything about Kate Spade?
Now, who was it?
Well, Kate Spade was a
Tell me
fashion
about it.
designer, and I've heard some people talk about some of her products possibly being manufactured in Haiti. We know the Clintons spent a lot of time in Haiti studying voodoo and then later basically robbing the place of billions of dollars. What can you tell us about the Clintons' background in Haiti and any possible connection to Kate Spade?
Well, the Clintons' connection in Haiti goes back to my time with Hillary. Now, folks, I did it. I'm guilty. It was my job every 4 to 6 weeks to make arrangements and to get the funding to pay for Hillary to go to Los Angeles. And there she met with Linda Bloodworth Thomason, you know, a Designing Women, that show that was big back then. And they would go to a witch's church. She would go to a witch's church. Now, Jason, I don't have a clue what you do in a witch's church.
Right.
I don't think it's good.
Right.
I mean, I just don't know what you do. I asked Hillary a couple of times about it. One time I asked her, I said, Hillary, you realize what will happen if we get caught doing this? I mean, can you even imagine in the deep South you being caught going to, and she said, I said, why do you do it? She said, I'm covering both bases. She'd go to Methodist church on Sunday and witch's church when she'd go out there.
Wow.
Then it got so bad, Jason, that finally I had a brilliant idea. I said, Hillary, what I'm going to do is get you to go to the Methodist church, and then I'm going to set up a Channel 11 and get this local camera crew. We're going to come out, and you're going to talk about your faith in God and all this stuff. And she was walking kind of away from me at the time, and she stopped, and she just turned her head back at me, and she said, you know, I can't do that. Turned around and walked off.
Now, Larry, what was the actress's name who she went to that church with?
Linda Bloodworth Thomason, Harry Thomason's wife. Harry Thomason was a huge producer for Columbia. He produced the movie North and South. He's the one that did the Clinton Boy from Hope video, you know, during his campaign the first time. He was just very, and he got bigger, obviously, when Clinton became president. He became a massive force in Hollywood. Now, think about this, guys. I say names. You notice how I say names. I don't stutter.
Right.
You know, I give people's names.
Right.
Now, the accusations that I make about these people, do y'all understand it's not just civilly liable? I mean, this is criminal libel. Some of the things I say about Hillary and Bill and the things that they do, they should prosecute me criminally. They don't. They don't. Never have. Because they know one thing. You get me in court with discovery, and I will tear them up. Plus, it would give me a platform. And what they have done successfully to me, Jason, is like Sam Donaldson said. Bill Clinton told Sam Donaldson himself back in the day, don't let Nichols own your parking lot. Because if you do, he'll trick you, and he'll get on the air some way.
Wow.
And it was Sam Donaldson that did the interview, now sort of infamous, where he asked Bill Clinton while they were at some gathering, you know, can you tell me the 3 people that you really most hate in the country, or the people that, you know, cause you the most trouble? He said, that's easy. Larry Nichols, and Larry Nichols, not necessarily in that order.
But it's funny because...
I mean, it sounds funny.
Yeah. In this article that I just found on the Fellowship of the Minds, which is not a website that I'm familiar with, but this is evidence that Hillary Clinton and her associates are Satanists, it mentions that Bill Clinton inserted you, Larry, as the marketing director for the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, which, if I'm not mistaken, was a sort of a CIA front for funding the operation at Mena Airport that was basically the cocaine to cash part of Iran-Contra. Isn't that correct?
Well, it wasn't. ADFA was not a part of the CIA. Advil was where I discovered, which caused me to break from Bill. This is what caused me and Bill to break apart. He put me in there. I'd been kind of banged up in Nicaragua when I was there with the Contras. And my family had the brilliant idea, you're getting too old to go run and jump and play in the jungles.
Right.
So I told Bill I need a cush job. He said he had the perfect place, put me at the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, an agency I'd never heard of. As deep as I was in Arkansas government, I'd never heard of the damn thing. And what it was a quasi-state agency. When it needed to be private to get money, it was a private corporation. But when it needed to be protected from the media or anybody finding out what it was doing, it was a state agency. The only one in the state. Only one in the state that had that criteria. And when I got there, there were two sets of books, obviously, one for everybody and the one that was real. And I kept noticing that money was supposed to come into ADFA. It was low-interest bond loans, but it was to help fund churches, libraries, schools, etc. But all the money just went to Friends of Bills.
Right.
Millions of dollars would go to Friends of Bills. But there was one little kicker. Nobody ever paid them back. And so I'm sitting there going, well, wait a minute. Tyson got, $2.8 million to put in a plant in Berryville, Arkansas, but he don't ever pay it back, but he gets paid back. What was happening, I found, they were running $100 million a month through that agency, through his best friend, Dan Laster's brokerage firm. When I started checking into it, I discovered this place called Mena, Arkansas. And Dan Laster had a friend. His name was Barry Seal.
Right.
And Barry Seal, I was in a unique position, guys, because I was involved with Calero and the Contras. I had some background there, obviously. And the Contras were being beat over the head about they were getting weapons for drugs and money, and I was with the Contras, and we weren't getting any money and weapons, and certainly had no drugs going anywhere. If we'd had cocaine, we'd have given it to the war. We didn't have anything.
So wait a minute, the Contras did not have cocaine, you're saying?
Did not. But doesn't matter. That day's gone. But what had happened, Barry Seal was running supplies to the Contras for the CIA. And he would either leave out of New Orleans with the Flying Tigers or Florida from Southern Air. And it didn't take him long to figure out when his planes came back into this country that the DEA would wave them off because they were CIA planes, right? They were CIA aircraft, so you don't mess with them.
Right.
Well, he figured that out and said, well, heck, I can take stuff to the Contras and on my way back, stop off in Colombia and Panama and backhaul drugs. He originally planned to backhaul it into Louisiana, but Edwin Edwards wanted 20%. And Lassiter told him he had a governor that would do better than that, and that was Bill Clinton. And so they set it up in Mena. Mena was a refurbishing center for the CIA. Now, what that was a no-name airstrip in the middle of nowhere, but the CIA could bring aircraft in that were in one theater, and when they were through with it, they would send it to Mena, get a new paint job, new serial numbers, etc., and then put it in another theater of action. Well, Barry Seal took advantage of that, and he brought in tons and tons and tons of cocaine. Now, what I found out was even worse than that. Remember, I'm the guy that went partying with Bill Clinton, Dan Laster, Don Tyson. I mean, I was with them all the time, sort of. I mean, I wasn't in that tight with them, but I was with them quite often. Well, as it turned out, he would bring in cocaine to Mena, pallets of it on the planes. Don Tyson had chicken houses all down in and around that area where they would go down and pay farmers to build these houses to raise chickens, and then they'd pick them up and take them to his plant, to make chicken product stuff.
Right.
They'd pick up live chickens at these farms. They would go into Mina. They would take the flatbed truck. They would put the cocaine in the bottom, put the chicken coops with the live chickens on top. And of course, chicken poop is ammonia, which would match the smell of the cocaine, and they would ship it out that way and distribute it. 100 million a month, right through the agency I was working at.
Huh.
And that's where it caused me to go to Bill and tell him, Bill, I've done a lot of stuff, but if Beth and Chelsea, who were about the same age, or the same age, I said, if they ever got hooked on cocaine, I couldn't live with myself. So you got 2 weeks to tell the truth about that. He busted up. And of course, he swore to me he knew nothing about it, which I knew he was lying. And then that started our feud.
Wow.
We came unglued.
He loves to say that he knows nothing about it. I asked him just the other day how Chris Gowan, defense attorney for Imran Awan, happened to get his hands on some evidence that I assisted a witness in bringing to the U.S. Capitol Police that went directly to the defense attorney for the suspect rather than the prosecutors. And Bill Clinton knew nothing about that.
That's right. They know nothing.
So
But I'm
I don't
telling
know.
you, this is the risk. This is the risk we are under now as a nation. They have so permeated, Jason, the FBI, Department of Justice, the judicial system. My God, how long have you heard the Black Robe Mob with our judicial system? That's the most crooked thing on earth. And they had one part missing: president. And Trump slipped in. And Jason, you've been around like me. It is not uncommon when a president of the other party gets elected, the out party pledges and does everything it can to stall its agenda or stop its agenda. Right? I mean, that's normal. That's just par for the course.
Politics.
You have never seen the times like we have today where they want blood. They want him out of there.
Yeah.
And they haven't stuttered about that since day one. They wanted him out of there. They don't want his agenda stopped. They don't want to stop him doing stuff. He's got to go.
Yeah. No, they're
And
definitely
that's
not fans of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And
I
that's
hope
when
they
you
don't
should know.
succeed. Yeah, I hope they don't succeed at that, Larry. Donald Trump and the agenda that he is behind right now seems to be our only hope. It's very shocking to me that the press and the public are not more enthusiastic about the positive direction things seem to be moving in with regard to North Korea. And so many people seem to have forgotten that it was Chinagate and so many of the things that the Clintons did that led us to a nuclear North Korea. Isn't that correct?
My word. Oh, my God. North Korea, when Bill Clinton negotiated, now, folks, this is history. When they negotiated facilitating North Korea with nuclear energy supposedly, for their power, clean power, there were 2 types of systems that we could have given to North Korea. One could not be used to make nuclear weapons.
Right.
The other could. Bill Clinton gave them, we paid for it, we gave them the system that facilitated North Korea to be able to make nuclear weapons. We did it through Bill Clinton.
And we don't
Got
hear
one scarier
anything
than
about
that.
that.
No, got one scarier than that. Bill Clinton let for the F-18, which was, I think, I may have had that backwards, but anyway, the F-18, I think, is the first fly-by-wire jet we have.
Mm-hmm.
First one. And that means everything is computer controlled. It's not
Right.
hydraulic controlled as normal.
Right.
Bill Clinton let the contract to build the onboard computers to all of our fly-by-wire aircraft still to this day be manufactured by China.
Jeez. And you know,
Now,
Larry,
I don't know.
that F-35, the incredibly expensive fiasco that is like billions of dollars in the hole and sort of still not ready, by many accounts has essentially been stolen by China. I think they have a J-31 that's remarkably similar.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear about these private servers and all these things. I mean, you know, isn't it possible if you have an unsecured private server, maybe with some top secret information on it, and somebody hacks it, they might get the plans to some top secret weapons?
Absolutely. And then imagine if we ever, God help us, got in conflict with China. Is it hard to believe that in our computers they might not have put some kind of trap door, back door, whatever you call it in computer world,
kill switch
to
sort of
jam
deal.
them up?
Yeah.
Flip the switch and ground our entire air fleet.
Right.
That was done by Bill Clinton. By Bill Clinton.
It's really amazing. And I mean,
And
even
then
the look of the Chinese J-31 is remarkably similar to the F-35 and the capabilities. I think it's actually better.
very possibly. And, you know, we hear talk about intellectual properties. For years, our government, up until Donald Trump, has voiced stuff about intellectual property theft by China, but it's done nothing. Donald Trump's the only one that's ever actually proceeded forward with trying to do something to stop the theft of intellectual property.
Yeah.
We invent something here, and before we build it in the first place, they got it. And have been doing that to us for years.
Wow. You know, Larry, people in the comments are talking about this tape that you had found. I remember when we first started talking almost a year ago, there was some tape. What happened with that? What was that all about? Can you remind us?
Are you talking about the recording of the meeting?
Yeah.
With Loretta Lynch and the guys?
Yeah, Comey, and it was like Larry's heard the tape or something like that.
Larry's got the tape.
Larry's got the tape. Yeah.
It's in safe hands now, where it needs to be. But this was, for anybody that wasn't there at the time, it was in the period of time between when Comey had his first press conference announcing that he was looking at Hillary, and then the second press conference when he had saying that they weren't going to do anything to her. In the middle of that, there was a meeting. And in this meeting was Hillary, her assistant, whatever, top assistant, I can't remember her name. And it was Comey, Loretta Lynch,
Huma
and a few other people.
Huma Abedin?
Huma Abedin.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how livid Hillary was at Comey for doing such a stupid thing. And that they had to come up with something to stop it because it was affecting her campaign. You know, it was destroying her campaign.
Right.
And they talk on that tape with James Comey. They talk about, you know, the way to fix it. And the best way, they said, was to draw everybody into it, make everybody think they had something on Hillary, and then right before the election, here's what we'll do. Right before the election, pow, he'll come out and say they investigated everything and there was absolutely nothing there.
Right.
And you know what? That's exactly what happened.
Right. So I'm looking at this video on a channel called James Creamer. Larry Nichols heard the tapes. Will we get a chance to hear these tapes, Larry? Is there any time that you'll release them, or perhaps you could share them with Crowdsourcing Truth?
That is not for me to release. That is, you know, there's no way. I don't have it anymore. It's in the hands of where it needs to be as a part of the prosecution. That one day is coming.
I see.
Is coming. It is.
So are you confident that James Comey and all these, will Hillary Clinton be indicted? Will we ever see Bill or Hillary facing a jail sentence?
Here is the problem, and I might as well say it to everybody. The problem is not Jeff Sessions. The problem is who you going to call. Tell me a federal court that a case could be brought against Hillary and the crew that would not be rigged right now.
Right.
Donald Trump has got federal judges up for confirmation. And until a federal judge gets confirmed that can avail a clean court, I don't think anything positive is going to come yet. It's coming, but it's not coming yet. The problem is the Democrats know that if they ever let those judges get through, they think Sessions will drop the hammer and put it through. Mm-hmm. The way it stands right now, folks, if you go to the D.C. district, there's nothing that would occur negative to Comey or Clinton or any of them. Nothing.
Wow. That sentiment has been echoed by another Larry, who I'll be speaking with later, Larry Klayman, the attorney.
Yeah. I mean, that's true, folks. That's just the facts. That's where we are. That's why I'm so scared, y'all. Dear God, can't y'all see? I'm not making this up. Take me out of it. Make me not credible. Throw me the hell away. Look at it for yourself. If you can't see now that our FBI at the highest levels were involved in a plot that I assure you, when it all gets told, started well in advance of when you think it is right now. It started back during the campaign period of Trump's presidency, when he was running. They went in there. They broke every law in the book, y'all, to set Trump up. Just in case, that's why they referred to it as an insurance policy. Just in case, accidentally, somehow, this yo-yo got elected.
Right.
They wanted in place the day he set foot in that office a way to get him out.
Right.
Can't y'all see that?
I think the viewers of this program are more aware of that than the average American. Larry, Doug Atherton in the comments here wants to know what you can tell us about Epstein Island and Bill Clinton. Did you ever see Jeff Epstein, or do you have any knowledge about this, or did that happen after?
I saw him years ago. I would lie to you if I could even remember what was involved. I mean, you got to understand, back in that day, all of these guys were up and comers. You got it? They were all up and comers. Right. Some in industry, some in law, etc. But no, I know nothing about that island. But I can tell you that island replaces Lassiter's Angel Fire. When Bill Clinton was governor, Dan Lasser had a complex called Angel Fire. It was like, I guess you'd say it like time-sharing type place.
Uh-huh.
And they would load up Tyson, Lassiter, Hubble, Clinton, me, and a bunch of the guys. We'd all load up, go to Angel Fire, and out there, they would just go wild. They would go wild. Women, drugs, the whole thing.
Huh. I'd never heard of that before.
It's there. And if you go back during Clinton's running, when he was running for president, the first time, you'll notice in some of the articles back then, you'll see I addressed it back then. I talked about it back then. More specifically, I talked about the time I was on the plane when we were flying to Angel Fire, New Mexico, and we flew over across the Mexican border into a little town, I can't remember, a little strip, picked up two young hookers, took them out to Angel Fire, they partied and everything. One of them OD'd and died. Oh my God, Clinton, Hubble, everybody went nuts, crazy. Got on the plane, went back to that airport, took her out of the plane, dumped her in a dumpster, and left.
Whoa. That's absolutely absurd.
Well, I can't help what it is or what it was. It's what it is.
Right. Wow.
You know, Jason, that's one thing people listening to me now that don't know me should know. I don't come here professing to be a good guy or a great guy or a nice guy or any of that stuff. I couldn't be and have done the things I did for Clinton back then. All I can do is try to make it right. That's all I can do.
Right.
That's all I can do. And, you know, what can I say?
Larry, it's tremendous. I mean, the stories that you have to tell, we've just been scratching the surface here. I'm sure there's so much for us to talk about. I definitely want to invite you back very soon to continue the conversation we've been having today and explore. I mean, any one of these topics could be the source of an hour's long program, but I really appreciate you sharing your time today. Larry, for people to support your work, what's the best way for them to do that? Is it the YouTube channel? Is there a website you'd like to share with people?
Yeah, I guess you can go to the Larry Nichols official site. I don't even know how to work all that stuff. Mary Ellen does a great job helping me with that.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody wants to help financially, it's nicholslive@aol.com on PayPal. Mm-hmm. nicholslive@aol.com on PayPal. But, you know, Jason, we are in such a pivotal time for this country that we've got to get everyone in your audience to engage. We've got to. This is no joke. It's not a game. It's not entertainment. It's real.
Right.
And we've got to stop this. We've got to stop it. And we've got to have people willing to help. In about 4 to 6 weeks, I will be having people make phone calls. It'll be very important, guys. Make phone calls to hand-picked congressmen. Mm-hmm. There's one thing I know about every member of Washington's Congress. They care about one thing, and one thing only. That's their job. If we can get enough people to make phone calls to key people, we can stop the impeachment of Donald Trump, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to stop it. It will require people willing to make, 10 minutes a week for 2 or 3 weeks worth of phone calls. They'll have a script. It's not ugly. It's not threatening in any way other than saying if you don't do right, we'll vote you out. But I mean, it's nothing dangerous. Right. We need people to help. We've got to have a massive call group to get their attention. And to my knowledge, that's the only way I know that you and I, Jason, can do anything to support President Trump just to keep him from being impeached. Hey, if he's guilty of something, impeach him. I got no problem with that. But impeaching him just to complete their agenda, when that agenda is to destroy our country, that I got to stop somehow.
Absolutely. Well, Larry, I'm happy to assist you with that in any way that I can, and certainly helping you get the word out by appearing on Crowdsource the Truth is something that I look forward to doing more in the future. I'm so glad to hear that your health is improving, and I'm just fascinated by all these stories, the incredible insight into, the details of things that we've heard about but maybe aren't quite clear on. So I look forward to our next conversation, Larry. Was there anything that you wanted to cover briefly before we sign off for today?
No, just to thank you, Jason, for having me. And I would like to be back on, if I may,
Absolutely.
over the next few weeks. We just got to grow the awareness, and you've got a wonderful audience. You've got an informed audience, and we've just got to work together and do something. That's one of the biggest things I hear. Well, I'm just one person. What can I do? I'm one person. There's nothing I can do. Let me tell you something, folks. When I started out against Bill Clinton, I was one person. They had discredited me. They had shamed me. They had stripped me of every nickel I ever had or will have and still don't today. But I played a good role, I think, credited as such, in having him impeached.
Yeah.
That's what one person can do, any one of us, if you're willing and dedicated. And this is our country we're talking about. And if you think you're old and it don't matter, well, think about this. Think about your kids or your grandchildren. There's got to be something that you love so much that you'll get up and stand up and try to help protect this country for them.
Well said, Larry. I look forward to having you back really soon. I want to thank my guest, Larry Nichols. Larry, thanks for everything you've been doing. I look forward to seeing you soon, and I will be back tonight at 8 p.m. with Larry Klayman. I look forward to seeing everyone then. Thanks very much for watching. Yes?
Tell Larry Klayman hello from me. He and I were together when he started.
I absolutely will. I'm sure he'll have a lot to tell us about the stuff that you guys were getting into and how it's developing now. Thank you so much for all your input, Larry. We'll speak with you soon.
Very good.
Take care, everyone.